Okay. Hi, folks. I just wanted to let you know, we're just waiting on a few folks to come, but we will be getting started shortly. Dr. Pfeiffer should be up shortly, okay?
Really? Oh, yeah. And there's a traffic light there. No. Yeah. It is. I can't believe 663. It's just gotten to be, well, people just go too freaking damn fast. You know, the intersection where Garyville Pike, you know, there's so many accidents there.
Yeah.
When I'm coming down towards Pennsburg on 663 and there's like a car that I have to go around, I crawl. I've had guys right up my tailpipe because they want to go 55 miles an hour.
Right.
I'm like, are you freaking crazy?
Yeah.
Because even with them expanding that, the road, the shoulders, there's still blind spots.
Yeah.
I'm like, you just go right ahead and crawl up my tailpipe, but I'm gonna take my time.
Everything they can.
Yeah.
Trying to
Right.
It's
Right.
just, it's one of those spots. It just
Yeah.
keeps continually
Well,
happening.
if you take your time, it's not an issue, but people don't.
Well, nobody's going slow today.
You know, I know. Yes,
Yes, me.
it's very true. I never used to be bothered by traffic. It's starting to bother me.
Oh, it's really.
Yeah, and even at Quakertown, I was sitting at Quakertown, 309 and 663. A guy blatantly went right through the red light.
I tried not to do it.
I mean, he had plenty of time to stop. And he just didn't feel
I'm
like it,
so
flying through there. I was like,
stricken by
oh my
all
gosh,
this.
it must have been a
Even
good
driving
5
from
seconds
Turnpike.
that it turned red and he just woo, going south on
I
309.
freak out.
I'm like, you
Because
moron.
the trucks, you know, how they.
You know, if you want to take yourself out, fine, but don't take people who are innocent and just happen to be in the right. Because of
That's
that.
another reason why I break. I'm not breaking. Gosh, I know.
Next week, the last one already.
Yep.
My goodness, time flies.
I know.
But you're still on it through Saturday or through Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm through till
I
Sunday.
was just saying, I'm on through Sunday.
I'm not gonna keep kind of doing it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's obviously great. The question, what if you realized, we need to have different people living in one house? They're saying like, ice cream, chips, or, really,
In front of me, right, yeah.
so kind.
I do just want to touch base with you folks, or Dr. Pfeiffer did come up. How are we doing with standard process emails? You've been getting them, right? Okay,
I've been getting them.
consistently now?
Since Friday.
Okay,
I have
okay,
to check too.
okay. How about you, Tammy? You've been getting them because I'm not. Yeah. I'm in charge. I'm like in charge of that part of it. It's like, I don't understand. Yeah, I don't. No, that's okay.
Well,
I mean, it's just really.
as far as the recipes, he doesn't want us to do the recipes. The rest of it is still like an encouragement. Yeah. But then it gives you ideas for after when you kind of refresh and stuff. So it's just to have for future if you'd like it. So you can find all the other website really well under Facebook.
Yeah.
Which I commented. Listen,
Wait.
okay.
How we doing, gang?
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. So we gotta, I hear that. Oh, no. All right, so let's go through, I got a lot of stuff up here to go through. Let's see. Okay, first things first, Kathy, thank you. I need to repeat questions from you guys so these guys know what the question is, because I only did that once, I think, last time. And I didn't do it every time you asked a question. So we've got a couple weights to get yet because we had an issue down in the corner there. We had two of our folks got into an accident right down here at the light. It doesn't sound like it was a horrible accident because they called us and said we're going to be a few minutes late. So hopefully it was just like a fender bender kind of accident. Everybody's okay from the way it sounds. Oh, I'm sorry. Two of our folks they're down there right now. Yes. So we shall see. Okay, but it didn't sound terrible because they called and said we're going to be a little late, so that's always a good sign. Okay, so just so everybody on the line knows, we got two people that are supposed to be here that are not, that were just in an accident at the corner, and it doesn't sound like it was real bad, so they're on their way. So I think we're okay. Okay, so I went through everybody's metabolic assessment form that we have and kind of reviewed, as I said before, each section of this metabolic assessment form means something different. It applies to a different gland or organ or tissue in your body. And so I kind of went through all of those for each one of you. Some of you who are not already seeing us in the Center for Nutrition and Wellness, and some of you are. So I have a pretty good perspective on where you stand with things as far as metabolic function of different, again, glands, tissues, and organs in your body. So that'll help me when some of you decide to go through the nutrition response testing that we'll talk about tonight. In your packet of materials, you have some things tonight, and hopefully everybody got them online. Some things tonight that we will reference, one in particular, that I think may be helpful to you in selecting clean foods to eat. So let's kind of get started tonight. If you guys have questions online, feel free to either, whoops, sorry about that, to pipe in and let me know either through the chat app or you can unmute yourself if you choose to. Everybody good? All right, here we go. So Remember this one thing always. Trust yourself to create the kind of self that you will be happy to live with all your life. Make the most of yourself by fanning the tiny inner sparks of possibility and the flames of achievement. You know, I mean, a lot of times with what we go through in life, not just through this process, but other things that are challenges to us, you know, we have to always recognize how we're going to come out the other end of what we're embarking on. So I have all your weights here, and I can see how some of you, all of you have made changes there, some of you more significant than others in a short period of time. And you know, it's interesting because I had a patient in this week who said that his wife had lost 50 pounds over 2 years, and a friend of hers that she walks with regularly, who's a registered nurse, retired now, was concerned about her health because she lost so much weight in, 2 years. But she did it the right way. You know, she did it by eating less and eating better foods and all the things that we talk about here. She would go nuts, this nurse, if she saw what you guys did. Because, I mean, we've got everywhere from 5.8 pounds to 9.2 pounds, a couple of you guys, to 13.6 pounds in less than 2 weeks, really. This Thursday will be 2. So, you know, I mean, if you do it right and you do it in a healthy fashion, there's no problem with losing weight, because losing weight, as I've said to you multiple times through the course of this program, is a byproduct of becoming healthier. So that's what we want you all to do. You've all done a fantastic job over the last nearly 2 weeks. And you're really through the toughest part of the cleanse program. The toughest part, I always say, is the first week. You know, really, sometimes just the first 3 days is the toughest part. But, you know, you're into 2 weeks now, and you're in the home stretch of what we're going to be doing. So your bodies have reset to a new level. Many of you will not feel as hungry as you used to at specific times throughout the day. And the reason is because you've actually reset hormonal function in your body. So there are 2 hormones that control hunger and satiety. And the hunger hormone is called ghrelin, and it's released and it causes you to want to eat. It's controlled by blood sugar levels. And then there's another hormone called leptin that when your blood sugar gets to a high enough level, you release leptin and your brain says, okay, stop eating now. So you've changed that in and of itself. You know, a lot of times people say their stomach shrinks. Well, there's probably some truth to that, but really what happens is you've kind of recalibrated hormonal levels relative to blood sugar levels. And, you know, you're able to go longer without eating. Some of you except. So you've also begun eating food and not product. And that's really important. You know, you've gotten away from some of the things that are manufactured, and you've been eating things that grow, as we should. And that's the way we're genetically designed to eat. Your bodies have cleaned house. You've gotten rid of a lot of bad stuff. A lot of the toxins that we accumulate, as I said to you previously, are located or deposited in fat tissue, fat cells. And so by clearing out fat cells, you excrete those toxins as well. And, you know, sometimes you'll get a little toxic overload too when you're going through the process. So that's something else that, you know, you've been able to kind of excrete from your system. And you've started to assimilate good things. So good fats have replaced bad fats in your body. And we'll talk a little bit more in a few minutes. So let's talk about, you know, what is bad and what is good. Some of the bad things are glyphosate. Okay, we know that more commonly as Roundup. Glyphosate is found in virtually all grain-based foods that you eat. Corn being one, wheat being another, because they spray heavily fields of corn and wheat with glyphosate because it kills weeds and things that grow around those foods, those grains. And they have developed genetically modified forms of corn and wheat and other products that are not affected by the glyphosate. So those things will be able to tolerate glyphosate, the natural weeds that we call. What is a weed? Does anybody know the definition of a weed? It's really anything that grows where you don't want it to grow. So a flower could be a weed if it's not where you want it to be. So we look at this as a totally different way to grow foods than we did 150, 200 years ago. Because at that time, when you harvested your corn, you always held back a certain amount of corn so that you could replant it next year. Can't do that with genetically modified corn. It will not regrow. You have to buy it from the producer, Monsanto or whoever the heck the producer is. So, you know, we've totally changed how we do things in agriculture. And that's why we have gigantic industrialized agricultural food growing companies like, I'm trying to think of the name of a couple of them. ConAgra is one. That's a big food producing company. And they own, like, you know, when we first moved here 35 years ago, whatever it was now, almost 40 years ago, there were plenty of small farms in this area. Not anymore. Okay, the vast majority of food that's grown is grown on gigantic industrialized food production by gigantic industrialized food production companies like ConAgra. And so they control that food supply. They also control how it's grown. So they do use a lot of that substance. And it's virtually impossible to get corn that is not genetically modified today, even the stuff you buy locally, because they even have to buy those grain seeds from the same companies. Like you'll see, there'll be signs on the side of the road with corn on it, and it'll say, like, I don't know the names of the companies, but there are different companies that produce the genetically modified grain corn seeds. And so they have them all over the place. And they use glyphosate too. They use Roundup as well on smaller farms. Trans fats. Now, trans fats, as I said before, are man-made fats. So how do they make this fat? Well, it started in World War II era in the 1940s, when they had to come up with something that they could replace butter with. So what they did was they took vegetable oil and they bubbled hydrogen up through the vegetable oil. And what happened was the hydrogen bound the molecules of the vegetable oil together. So it made it into a semi-solid substance. And it was clear, it was white, like Crisco. Crisco is a trans fat. And so then they gave you a little packet of yellow powder that you would put in with it, mix it around, and it made it look like butter, but it really wasn't butter. And a lot of us were raised on that, you know, years ago. Margarine is what they called it. And so trans fats were an inexpensive form of fat that we could use on a large scale to not only manufacture foods, but cook foods in, okay? So trans fats, unfortunately, are not permeable the way natural fats are. The lining of every cell in your body is made up of what's called a phospholipid membrane. And so what that means is that part of it, the lipid component, is fat. But if you consume trans fats and they're incorporated into a cell membrane, it becomes less permeable to things moving in or out. And you always have to remember, your cells are just like your body. They take in nutrients and they excrete waste products. If they cannot take them in or excrete them through the cell membrane, then you don't get the nourishment to the cell, and you can't get rid of the toxic waste products out of the cell as readily. Now, if you start consuming good fats, you can replace those trans fats because your body will preferentially use them in the cell membrane. So it's a way to kind of modulate what you've already done to yourself if you put good fats like the omega-3s that we've talked about already in your body. Sugar is the biggest one now. Number one thing that we consume that destroys our body is sugar. And I don't care, we talked about this before, what the OS is. It could be glucose, it could be sucrose, it could be maltose, it could be levulose. They're all sugars, okay? So when you read a label, and we'll talk about that next week, you have to make sure that you read the OSs too, because that's how they hide them. They use different forms of sugar. So you don't know how much sugar you're getting unless you look at, number one, the label, but then look at the types of sugar you're getting as well. Inflammatory grains. Now I mentioned some of these already, but inflammatory grains, all right, we'll get to the good in a second. Inflammatory grains include corn and wheat, the two mainstays of any grain-based food that we consume in this country. Those contain omega-6 fatty acids, and omega-6 fatty acids inflame your body. Now, do we need omega-6s? Yes, but there's supposed to be a ratio of omega-6s to omega-3s of about 3 omega-6s to 1 part omega-3. But in our culture, because of the things we consume, we're way out of skew. You know, and it can be 60 parts omega-6 to 1 part omega-3, which creates a lot of inflammation in our bodies. The other thing that'll create inflammation is sugar. So it feeds it, okay? It creates more. So any condition that you are diagnosed with that ends in itis is an inflammatory condition, and I don't care whether it's colitis or arthritis, it's inflammatory. So we have to decrease inflammation in our bodies if we want to be healthier as well. And you have all done that this week by getting away from those omega-6 laden grain-based foods and decreasing your sugar intake, which you've all done, okay? So let's talk about some of the good things that you've done. Healthy omega-3 fatty acids. Now you guys used the flax oil in your shakes, and some of you have used the omega-3s, the fish oil. All of those oils will create or are omega-3s. They're anti-inflammatory for your system. Life-sustaining phytonutrients. So phytonutrients are any plant-based nutrient. So phytonutrients include both minerals and vitamins. So when you consume a carrot, you're getting a lot of vitamin A. But when you consume spinach, as an example, you're getting a lot of vitamin C. You're also getting a lot of iron, okay? So these are foods that will enhance those nutrients that you may consume in other forms, like a synthetic supplement of vitamin B, which you can get from many of your foods. Magnesium, as an example, is contained in certain nuts, but you're getting a natural form. Now, whenever you get a food-based form of nutrient, it's much more readily absorbed into your system than a synthetic form. And that's why if you take a whole food source of vitamin C, you don't need to consume as much because you're going to absorb it much more readily, as opposed to consuming a synthetic form of vitamin C like ascorbic acid, which the FDA says you can label as vitamin C. So when you buy your vitamin C tablet, turn it around and look at it, it's going to say vitamin C in the form of ascorbic acid. Now, ascorbic acid is one component of vitamin C, but there are many cofactors that go with it to make up a vitamin C complex. And you have to kind of add those from in your body, essentially, to make vitamin C complex. So you will not absorb as much of that 500 or 1,000 milligrams of ascorbic acid as you will from, as an example, our whole food tableted source of vitamin C here is called Cataplex C. That only contains 35 milligrams of vitamin C, as opposed to 500, which a lot of people, or 1,000 people take one tablet, but it's because it's all going to be absorbed. You take 500, maybe you will absorb 35 milligrams, about the same. but it's an easier way for your body to assimilate it. So always maintain that concept in your mind. Lots of healthy water. We are the most dehydrated culture, I think, probably ever. We just don't drink enough water. And so consequently, we drink a lot of other things. But consequently, we don't have a sustainable matrix around our cells to excrete some of the byproducts that I was just talking about into. So think about it this way. If you've got a river flowing around your cells, which you do, it's called the matrix, like the movie, but a little different. And what you do is you excrete out of your cells the waste products. They go into that fluidy matrix. But if you don't consume enough water, that fluidy matrix congeals and becomes more gelatinous. So guess what? The material is not going to flow out of the area where you excrete it to. It's going to kind of be trapped there. So that's one reason it's important to drink enough water. Second reason is this. When you go to sleep at night, your body literally detoxifies. Okay, so you're excreting a lot of waste products. That's one of the reasons you urinate at night. You know, many of us get up to urinate at night, but sometimes you urinate a great deal in the morning when you get up because you're excreting a lot of waste products into your urine at that point too. So water consumption is extremely important for all of us. And correct balance of macronutrients. So macronutrients are really three: fats, proteins, carbohydrates, but the right proportion. So there are different diets today, right? We have the paleo diet. Paleolithic diet is primarily proteins, some vegetable-based carbohydrates, very little fruit-based carbohydrates, and not much fat. Now, that is opposed to the keto diet, which is in vogue now, which is a high fat-based diet and a lower protein-based diet and a lower carbohydrate, like almost no carbohydrate diet, okay? And what carbohydrates you do get comes solely from vegetables in a keto diet. Hardly any fruit at all. So what's the purpose of these three diets? Well, it's to use something that's much more difficult or time consuming for your body to convert into sugar. So the paleo diet uses protein. And here's the way your body will convert substances to sugar. It wants to use carbohydrates because it's the easiest, most efficient thing to be converted into sugar. Second thing that's easiest to be converted, but more difficult than carbohydrates, is protein. The least energy consuming way to produce carbohydrates from one of the macronutrients is to use fats. So fats are broken down into sugar or converted to sugar very, very slowly. It's a long, convoluted process. Proteins, it's a little easier. Carbohydrates, piece of cake to convert. You break one bond sometimes and you got a sugar. Literally, piece of cake. Sorry. Sorry. It is a piece of cake. Right. So that was good. Amy brought up that fact that is a carbohydrate, piece of cake. Yeah. Freudian slip, sorry. So that's why in our case, what we've been doing is more like Paleolithic. We're not consuming a lot of fat at all. We're consuming protein and some vegetables. And you saw with, like when we had the conversation last week, one of the things that I recommended is maybe increase your protein if you're really hungry. So have an egg or another shake, as your potentially your whey pro, but there's protein in the SP Complete too. So, that's what I encourage as we go through the cleanse. Now, some people do better on one form of diet than another, but most everybody will feel better when they just eat food including vegetables, some meat, and a little bit of fruit in the form of a low glycemic fruit. Okay. So as I said earlier, some of you have lost a significant amount of weight in a couple of weeks. And, again, our goal has been to create health and drive your system towards that health and wellness paradigm, and not just to lose weight. And everyone has lost weight. So my second statement there, if you don't lose weight, take heart. You're more healthy, which you are, but virtually everybody in this program has lost a significant amount. As I said, we've got your toxicity questionnaires. I went through your metabolic assessment forms, and we're going to compare, because we're going to have you do another toxicity questionnaire at the end of the program. We're going to compare the initial one to the final one and see what's changed. And it'll be significant. Virtually everyone's is. Next week, I'll also be offering an opportunity to receive a brief nutritional test, response testing analysis. So let me just briefly talk about that, because some of you who are patients of mine up here know what that is. So typically what I do in the center is I use multiple things to assess where we are as far as deficiencies or toxicity. I can use blood work, which is important for us up here to be able to use. We look at it a little differently, though, than standard medical evaluations of your blood work, because I use functional medicine norms, which are much tighter than the norms that they use at the lab. Because understand, those norms are just an average of everyone who's had a blood test done at that lab. And that's why some labs vary a little bit in their ranges for different things. Our norms are based on what has been determined to be healthy norms. So an example, when you have your thyroid evaluated, usually the only test medically they do is TSH, possibly a reflex to T4. So their range is going to be somewhere around 0.45 to 4.50. Very broad range. He's laughing, I know why. Very broad range. But in functional medicine, the range is 1.8 to 3.0, much tighter range. Because if you skew from that, something else is going to be wrong in the cascade of events that occurs when TSH, which is not a thyroid hormone, it's a pituitary hormone, is released from your brain to tell your thyroid what to do. After that, your thyroid produces primarily T4, which is an inactive form, for the most part, inactive form of thyroid hormone. That T4 will be carried by proteins to different places in your body, specifically to be converted into T3, the active form of thyroid hormone. That activity occurs in your liver and your gut. And then that T3 will cause other metabolic activities to occur in your body. So your thyroid is a very important gland. I don't mean to get off on this tangent, but I want you to understand that if your range is going to be 0.45 to 4.50, you're not going to know if there's anything wrong below that for a long time until you get out of that range. And once you're out of that range, everything's all messed up. But when we run a blood test on a patient for a thyroid evaluation, we don't just do TSH with a reflex to T4. We do everything. We do TSH, we do free T4, we do total T4, we do free T3, total T3, reverse T3, we do thyroid antibodies. I mean, we do everything. So rather than doing one test, we do about 7 or 8. So that's an example for you to understand a little bit more about one of the things that we use here when we do an evaluation on the patient. But what I'm talking about here with the nutrition response testing is we use points similar to acupuncture points that correlate to different glands or organs in your body. And we utilize that to help us determine if there's a weakness or deficiency in a specific gland or organ. And we'll get into more of that if you choose to evaluate that. And some of you who are already patients in the center understand that process. But it gives us a very efficient screening process that we can utilize to kind of target something and then combine it with the other things that we do in an evaluation nutritionally to kind of be as specific as we possibly can about the primary thing that's wrong with a patient. Okay. We have patients up here right now who are suffering from long hauler syndrome, which is what happens with people who end up with COVID-19. But everybody ready to clap or cheer or something? They're not here yet. Feel like we're in a wedding. Well, how'd you guys make out? Really? Is it pretty good thump? It's a heck of a bump. Really? But that's it? Check it out. So these guys just came in, for those of you who are online, who were just in the accident down the road. And everybody, they're weighing in right now, but everybody is good. May need to be adjusted in a few days. So we are going to talk about that analysis next time for those of you who want to perfect. All right. So what are some of the challenges at this point that you guys have? Now, I want you to all to understand that next week we're going to be talking about transitioning to the real world. We're going to be talking about what you can do to make sure. Glad you guys are here. Yeah, I know. Don't joke about it yet, fella. Give it a couple days before you joke about it. But he just came. One of these deals. So Chris thinks that, or Eric thinks that's funny. But I honestly, at this point, you guys, as I said before, are through the toughest part. But we will be discussing next week some foods that I will bring in that will help you understand how we want you to transition into the real world again. And one of the things that I want to emphasize to you is if you get through the process and decide you're going to go out and have like a pizza, don't be surprised, number one, if you feel sick after you have it, because your body's not used to that stuff anymore. You have had no cheese, you've had no, none of the oils that they put into that. I mean, depending on where you have it, sometimes they use good oils, sometimes they don't. So, there's going to be a lot of change that's occurred here that when you try to go back to your evil ways again, your body's going to say no. And it's kind of like, I always relate it to, they are evil ways. I always relate it to the movie Super Size Me. It was out years ago, but the guy was like vegan. He was clean. His blood pressure was, everything was perfect in this guy. And he decides to eat McDonald's. And if they ask him if he wants to supersize it when they used to do that, he has to say yes. The first meal he ate, he threw it all up right afterwards because his body rejected it because it was not food to his clean body. And you may find some similar experiences if you choose to go back to your evil ways. It's like a laser beam right on you, man. No, it's this. I should have my eyes over on the other side. But you guys remember that online too, because I'm on Chris and Eric, but that's my man. I love it. All right. So does anybody have any questions, challenges, things they're not sure about at this point? I think we're all pretty much on board, but we're good. Everybody's good. Everybody online good? Looks like everybody's good. All right. So let's blow past that. Different foods since the first week. We talked about that last week, creating variety. And that's one of the most important things I can emphasize to you is creating variety in the foods you're eating. Eat different foods, try different things. If you haven't eaten whatever. I talked about okra last week. That's a fun one. But if you haven't eaten certain foods and you see them in the supermarket, we've got tons of recipes on the website. You can go online and find good ways to cook good food. You don't have to, go searching all over the place. We gave out a recipe this week in the center. What the heck was it? Yeah, it was a vegetable soup, right? Was that the pureed one? Yeah, I had somebody ask, I think I said it last time, ask if you put that on top of like pasta or whatever. I said, no, that's a soup. You eat that, like a soup. Do you feel like you're getting enough to eat now? It's better. So Eric says it's better, and Eric was challenged last week, and we talked about some ways to kind of give him more because he needs more because he burns it up quicker. And this is what we have to do. If you're hungry, you need to be eating more frequently, or if you get too hungry, you're going to eat the wrong thing. You're just going to grab something, because your sugar level's probably going too low and you just need to get it up. So you're going to put whatever you can into your mouth to get that accomplished. So be cautious about that. Yes. Mhm. Yep. Yes. Short answer is yes. So the question was, if you have a greens first in between meals, will it help manage sugar levels? And the answer is yes, but it's not going to be like having a, swig of orange juice, right? So it's not like we want to wait to that point and say, oh, I gotta have to, have some sugar. We want to have something in between, like a routine, okay, so to speak. Like I was saying before, my routine, I'll have one, I put a scoop in my shake, okay? And then I have one about 1 o'clock. And then I have one at the end of the night usually, because I don't get a chance prior to that. So take a look at our website, look at the recipe tab, see if there's something there you can utilize. I'm sure there will be. There's tons of stuff on. Yes. Go ahead. Linda's got a challenge. What do you got, Linda?
Trying to stay with my schedule, not eating meat, but better food. I mean, I'm feeling better. All those things are happening with this,
Sure.
but I'm having problem having my snack at work and just blowing through snack time because I'm so busy. Today I ate lunch at 3 o'clock and I leave at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, see.
So I'm having that, and I put that in my questionnaire, a lot of stress. And I think that's a big part of my problem, but trying to plan ahead and not fall asleep before I'm making my salad at night. And so those, I'm having challenges with that.
Now, do you feel you're having stress with trying to do everything you need to do? You said stress, and I want to make sure I understand how. Work-related stress. Okay. So Linda's, I'm going to break that down a little bit. Linda's question is trying to get everything prepped or ready for the day, so to speak.
For being able to follow the program. I had my hard-boiled egg ready to go and it just blew through it. I didn't have time to eat it.
So with Linda said with work, she's so busy that she doesn't have time. She forget. Probably you just forget. You're blown right through it. You're working so hard. Right. Like, oh, so she said she normally leaves work at 4 o'clock. She didn't eat her lunch until 3 o'clock. And so, obviously there are two things here that I want to mention. One of which is the stress that you deal with on a daily basis. And I believe we're going to talk about that tonight, and you're going to see how that's affecting you physiologically. But the other thing is prep and being able to say, okay, I have that hard-boiled egg. It's almost like you got to set your alarm on your cell phone to buzz at a certain time, and I got to eat. You know what I mean? It's almost like you have to plan that much to be able to handle the schedule that you have, because Linda's schedule is very, very busy and it's nonstop. But it's a situation that can be managed, but it has to be managed in a way that is going to allow you to accomplish what you have to accomplish. and yet get that break in there to at least gobble down a hard-boiled egg to keep you going.
Right.
And the problem with this is that when you are that busy, so to speak, you have a tendency to self-destruct, right? Because you're going to just grab something. You're going to kind bar or whatever, and and gradually and progressively, you're going to go down that path, and it'll just expand. So my suggestion is that, well, multiple suggestions, and some of them you're already doing. So, yep. So Linda's going to get another job. I think that's first suggestion. Second suggestion is, as you probably are already, prepare. And usually I tell people to do it on the weekend, Sunday afternoon, get your food all together or whatever you have to do. Hard boiled a bunch of eggs so you have them for the week and you don't run out. And the third thing is literally to have reminders. Like I said, set an alarm on your cell phone to buzz at 12 o'clock and, come up with a thing that says, eat my hard boiled egg or something. It's almost like you have to be that specific about what you're doing, because I know that you've done this before and you get to a point, and this is common. All you guys need to hear this, because you get to a point where life starts to take its toll, no matter what it is, the kids, the grandkids, somebody needs me for this committee or whatever it is, it gets in the way of what you normally would do. I mean, we don't live in nirvana. It's not like every day is, okay, I got this, and this. All of a sudden something comes in and blows that all off the table and you got something else, So being as willing, if you do have a messed up day, to get back on track the next day, get back up on the horse, a metaphor that you will appreciate, and just start doing it again the next day. But make the compensation, whatever it may be, whether it's stick a sticky note on your screen on your computer to stop. One thing I oftentimes do with patients in the office is when they are overwhelmed with things, I take a Post-it note and I write something on it, and I say, stick it on their shirt without them seeing it. And I said, from now on, if someone else asks you to do something that you don't have time to do, just don't even say anything. Just go like that. And all the Post-it says on it is no, with an exclamation point. Because sometimes we just, personalities are different, obviously, but sometimes you just take it on. Can you do this? Yeah, sure, no problem. And before you know it, you're overwhelmed. And this will be incorporated into our talk about stress tonight, but it's important that or next time, I can't remember whether it's tonight or next time, but it will be coming up. But you have to remember that, that is a component of this whole process. So the stress that you have been under for an extended period of time is probably part of the reason that you've been derailed in the past. And I commend you for saying, I got to change that, because a lot of people won't. They'll just say, this is the way it is. And that applies to everything in our lives, whether it be a spouse or whether it be a job or whether it be the kids or whether it be, whatever, your neighbor. You have to be able to say, okay, I don't think I need that anymore, that aggravation or whatever it may be. So I'm going to change that. And it can be changed, not easily sometimes, but it can be changed. And once it's changed, then that stressor reduces, like you getting another job. I don't know if that helped all that.
No, it does. It's a point of frustration for me. Because I could have 50 Post-it notes on my monitor, but the phone keeps ringing.
Right.
And I can't shove a hard-boiled egg in my mouth in between phone calls.
Yeah, you can't talk with egg in your mouth.
Somebody can kind of push to the side. Hard-boiled egg.
No, it doesn't work. Does not work. But remember what I told you guys last week, and I will remind you of this as we go through tonight and next week, that my goal is to change humanity. And I know that's a big, big, lofty goal, but every person that comes through this program is now a foot soldier for doing that, because you know more than, I will tell you, know more than 99.9% of the adult population in this country about what you should be doing and what you should not be doing as far as lifestyle and diet. So I only ask that you be part of that, okay? And assist in the accomplishment of that goal. People will make fun of you, people will be, and a lot of times it's jealousy. They'll see that you've lost a bunch of weight, or they'll see that you look differently, and they'll see that you're eating differently. And they'll say, what are you doing? Why aren't you, eating the cheesesteak Kobe over here that I have? Why are you eating that? But you have, yeah, will you stop back there? Eric said it sounds good. But you have to realize that you will affect others by what you're doing. And I think that's a really important concept for us. The E word, look, I don't go into a lot of detail about exercise in this program. What I tell you is you must move. As I said last time, motion creates health in multiple different ways. I told you that you have nerve fibers, nerve receptors in the muscles and joints that give neurologic feedback to your brain as to what your position is. And if, listen, we don't understand, like, not even 10%. I'm going to say we don't even understand 1/10 of 1/100th of 1% about what goes on with this organism, this collection of cells, this community that we call our body. And in order to recognize how miraculous it is, all we have to look at are some of the things that it does. And the way we treat it and abuse it over time. And it still comes back, and it can modulate, and it can adapt to all the things that go on in our bodies, with our minds. And the other thing we don't recognize is the relationship between the mind and body, and the body and the mind. So one of the things that I just talked to you about was the way your body affects your brain. And there's a lot of research that's been done relative to Alzheimer's and dementia, specifically about that topic, motion and cognitive function. We sit around way too much nowadays, kids especially. I talked to you about Pottinger's cats. You wait another 20 years and you see what these people who are now children and grow into adults look like and act like. It's a sin. It's really a crime, because when we were kids, we ran all over the place, rode our bikes, climbed trees, did all kinds of stuff. These kids, they're sitting there going like this. And just wait till this AI thing starts catching on more and more and more. You're going to do less and less and less. And, then they get the virtual reality thing and all kinds of crazy stuff, which we have to understand how that is impacting on our health and on our, not just our physical health, our mental health as well. So simple exercises you can do. I mean, anything from going up steps to walking a distance to, if you planking, anybody who's ever planked, you realize how difficult that is in a short period of time to have your muscles contracted to hold you straight while you're elevated in the air on your elbows or your arms. And you do that for a little bit, you'll be amazed how you feel. You'll also be amazed how hormonally your body changes when you exercise on a routine basis. You feel more mental clarity, you feel more alert, you can go longer throughout the day and not fatigue by 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So doing simple things, doing squats, practicing balance, raising one leg, trying to stand on one leg. See how your body adapts? Your ankle starts moving back and forth and sideways. It's doing all this to keep you straight. But these are things that feed that. When I just did that, I had input go from my ankle all the way to my brain and right back down to contract. And it's nanoseconds. to say, contract this muscle. No, contract that one. No, nope, 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 nope. It's going on constantly while I'm doing that. But you don't give any conscious thought to it, do you? It just happens. But that happens less and less and less as you use it less and less and less. And if you don't want to fall when you're 80 years old, you better start doing that now. Okay? Because once you lose it, it's gone. You know, it's very difficult to get back. Remember the 4 pillars of health that we spoke about when we first talked, and that are in my book that you will read. You need to eat right, think right, move right, and sleep right. And if you do those 4, you're going to be much healthier than you would be if you did 2 or 1 or 3. It doesn't matter how old you are, okay? You can start exercising at any point. And I didn't mean to be negative when I said once you lose it, it's gone. But balance is a very difficult thing to regain once it's gone, because all those nerve fibers have now been affected. And you have to reboot the whole system to get it back. It can be done, but it's difficult. So start at any point exercising. So let's talk about week 3 and what's coming up. Okay, we're good. Your supplements pretty much remain the same. So you're going to do your SP Complete Shake, you're going to do your SP Green Food, you're going to do your Gastro Fiber. Okay, so that all stays the same this week. Basically, what I want you to do this week is to recognize that, okay, here's where we are in this second week. You've made a lot of changes. Things may slow down a little bit now as far as weight loss for some of you. We talked about that last week. If you need to stay on the cleanse a little longer, remember we discussed that, we need to talk about it. And if you stay on the SP cleanse a little bit longer, you do tend to lose a little bit more weight. So, but what I want you to recognize now, in light of the fact that we lost all this weight in a short duration of time, as long as you continue doing what you're doing, regardless of whether it's as rapid, as long as the trend is in the same direction, it doesn't matter. So some of you, it's going to happen faster. Some of you, it's going to happen a little slower because of your metabolism. But as long as it's trending in the same direction, we're great. And you notice what we did. We weighed you once a week. We didn't tell you to weigh yourselves every day, because that can be discouraging, because your weight could trend up and down, you know, in a course of a day or 2. That's okay. All right. That's also why when you weigh yourselves, I want you to weigh yourselves the same time and the same way. And the way is, after you're done with everything you do in the morning, all your bodily functions are cleared out, you've taken a shower, whatever you do, weigh yourself with no clothes on the scale. And then record it. And then wait a week before you do that again. Don't say, oh, I'm going to check it again today. No, don't do that. Okay, because you're gonna, these are little tricks that will keep you from kind of derailing and becoming discouraged. So the whole food, I keep speaking about whole food supplements because we use a lot of them in our practice here. But the whole food multivitamin that we use is called Catalent. And it was developed in the 1930s by an individual who was, in my opinion, a genius. His name was Royal Lee. Here's a guy, you know, the drills that they use on your teeth. Now, years ago, those drills were motorized, and they had a series of pulleys that spun, and they had like a spring thing on them, and that spun the drill, right? That's the guy who invented it, Royal Lee. And he held numerous patents on numerous different things. But in order to develop that, he decided he needed to be a dentist before he did it. So he went to dental school and got his degree as a dentist. And then he invented the drill thing. He invented all kinds of stuff for the military, all kinds of things. But he also experimented with foods in combining them in different ways to get different nutrients into them that could be compressed into a tableted form. And he's one of the pioneers in nutritional supplementation, but everything he did was whole food. So an example, and I want you to understand the difference. So whole food supplements are made from food, right? Synthetic supplements are made from all kinds of other stuff. As an example, to make vitamin B complex synthetically, the initial product they use to make that is coal tar. And they refine it in different ways, and ultimately make it into a chemical composition that is the same as vitamin B complex. But you can also just get it from your foods, which is a better way to do it. So Catalin is, I think this is on your sheets too. If you choose to use a whole food vitamin supplement for a multivitamin, Catalin would be my recommendation. And I'm pretty sure, Amy, you're probably there before I am. It's on your sheets, right? What's it? Yes, Catalin is. Gymnema is, and we talked about that before for cravings of sugar. If you guys get through the program and you start craving sugar because everybody's got it around you and you want to try it, or they bring cookies into work or donuts or whatever, get some Gymnema and use it. It works. It keeps you from having those cravings that you may get later on. Okay. Environmental Working Group. I mentioned them before. EWG.org. It's in your notes. And we gave you a little card tonight, which has the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. So you can look at some of the foods, and this kind of goes along with what I was talking about earlier with herbicides like glyphosate. You know, these foods that we have listed on the Dirty 12 are probably the most heavily laden with pesticides and or herbicides. And they include strawberries, spinach, nectarines, apples, peaches, pears, cherries, grapes, celery, tomatoes, sweet bell peppers, and potatoes. Now, you say, how come potatoes have it? Well, if they spray a herbicide around the potatoes, and I'm talking about the ones you would buy in a supermarket that are not organic, that is going to go into the ground. That's where potatoes grow, and it'll come into the potatoes because that's what they do. They absorb things and it goes into the fruit or vegetable, whatever you're consuming. And then the Clean 15, if you look at that, now again, the sweet corn is going to be genetically modified normally, but think about the foods that are listed over here. Most of them have, like, as an example, sweet corn has a husk, right? Multiple layers around it, which protect it from sprays and things of that nature, because you're going to take that off. So again, you can look at these yourself, but I want you to understand that if you eat organic foods, you don't have to worry about this as much, okay? Because organics will not have that on.
So this one, pesticides and stuff being used, it's not like the ones on the ones in the 30, 12, you shouldn't be eating versus-
No, but what I would say to you, Tara, is the ones in the Dirty 12 are the ones you want to try to get more organic if you can, okay? Because they're going to be a lot cleaner. So if you want to eat strawberries, that's great. But like the strawberries I use in my shake, as we said, right? Organic frozen strawberries, right? Okay, and these are, you know, some of the things that we talked about already. And remember, the fish oil we use is ultra distilled, so it takes out any impurities, and it has lemon flavor added to it. So, you know, regardless of whether you use the liquid or the gel caps, you should not have it repeat on you. Any fish oil you use should be refrigerated like ours, always. That'll reduce the potential it'll repeat on you. But ours, look, if you get fish oil and it smells and tastes fishy, just like fish that you eat, you know what I mean by fishy. You can smell it across the room. That's not good, okay? That's bad fish, that's bad fish oil. So always remember that, use the sniff test too. Probiotics we didn't talk a great deal about, but they're listed here as well. broad spectrum probiotic is what you want. I had a patient up in the center and she says, well, you know, I'm eating my yogurt and I get my probiotics. And I said, yogurt contains one form of probiotic, Lactobacillus acidophilus, and that's it. But there are multiple different forms of probiotic, Lactobacillus, Bifidus, and there are multiple forms of both of those. So, you know, you have to have a good probiotic. Why? Because most of us have destroyed our probiotics in two ways. Antibiotic therapy, which broad spectrum antibiotic therapy will kill probiotics as well. What is a probiotic? So a probiotic is an organism that lives in a symbiotic relationship with us. And symbiotic relationship means I get something good and it gets something good out of the relationship. Okay, so what do we get? We get significantly better immune function and digestion, but immune function is the biggie. If we have plenty of probiotics in our bowel, what do they get? We are supposed to give them prebiotics, which are fiber-based foods, indigestible cellulose fiber. So things like many of the vegetables that you will eat contain a lot of indigestible cellulose, like celery as an example. You know, all this stuff around the basically celery is like a little round thing, almost like I said fat cells were, with water inside of it, you know? And so when you eat those foods, you can't digest it. That's what the fiber is, right? We talk about eating fiber. It's good because it helps clean your bowel out and form a stool and all that kind of stuff. But they can eat it. They can digest it and break it down. So that's what they feed off of. So that's the symbiotic relationship. My opinion, we get a heck of a lot more out of it than they do. Okay, we get increased immune function, significantly increased immune function. So that's the importance of re-inoculating your bowel with probiotics. The probiotics, they're heat labile. In other words, they break down if they're heated. So our probiotics are refrigerated, and we recommend you refrigerate them as well. Okay, so once again, I will say to you what I've said before. You get what you pay for when you buy supplementation. Okay, hey, I got a probiotic, it was only $9.95 and they gave me 16 more for free. Well, it's because it's junk, you know, typically. So you have to look at what's in it and you have to look at the quality of it. I've seen, I said this before, I've seen patients who have consumed multiple vitamins and I take an x-ray of them for another reason. And I can see the undigested caplet in their bowel, you know, because it never broke down. So, you know, we get what in the center and downstairs, I use the best quality supplements I can find for the most reasonable price. Does that mean they're less expensive than something you'll get at Walmart? No, but it's the best quality at the best price. And that's what I always look for. Okay, so innate choice, omega sufficiency, this is all about it. I believe it's all in your notes, but it's made, well, a couple of important things relative to fish oil, regardless whether you use ours or not. You want to get fish oil that's made from small fish. Why? Because small fish don't live as long. Small fish, therefore, bioaccumulate less junk, PCBs, mercury. Large fish, like omega-3s that are made from tuna and or salmon, have a longer lifespan. They will bioaccumulate more junk. And therefore, if you buy a fish oil supplement, look at what it's made out of. If that doesn't say, call and ask them. Second thing, you want the highest concentration naturally of DHA and EPA, the two components of your fish oil. If they're not listed on the label, which they oftentimes aren't, then you have no idea how much DHA or EPA is in there. You can get the 800 number for the company customer service, call them up and ask them how much DHA and EPA is in there. They won't know. I called one time on one just because I was curious. And I said, do you have an assay of your fish oil? In other words, do you do an analysis on it? Copy it. They didn't even know what I was talking about, you know? So this is assayed and we know how much EPA and DHA is in there. About the same as ours.
Okay.
So it's a good quality. So the question was, what about Rescue Fish Oil? It's a company that manufactures fish oil. And it's the same quality as ours. So I would say if you're not going to get ours, get Rescue.
Okay.
Okay. And then compare prices always. All right. I think I hit that pretty well. My omega-3s for brain health. Here are a couple facts on omega-3s and brain health. So omega-3s, fatty acids, can alleviate the risk of traumatic brain injury. So here's a study. It was done, it was very interesting, actually. I'm not gonna- Yeah. These results imply that omega-3, this is right out of the study. These results imply that omega-3 enriched dietary supplements can provide protection against reduced plasticity and impaired learning ability after traumatic brain injury. So reduced plasticity means this. You whack your head, okay, and you have traumatic TBI, traumatic brain injury. Plasticity means another portion of the brain can take over whatever was lost here. If you don't have enough plasticity or that ability to compensate, you won't be able to regain whatever cognitive function you've lost. But if you have enough omega-3, specifically the DHA component of the omega-3s, you have the ability to really regain what you've lost because you'll use another component or another portion of the brain. And this was done with a study, actually, it was many years ago. There was a coal mine crash or collapse. And this young boy, 21, 22 years old, was the last one they pulled out. He was unconscious. He remained that way for like 3 or 4 weeks. They didn't know what else to do with this kid. So a neurologist said, you know what do we got to lose? So he started infusing, I think he infused omega-3s into this kid. And he came out of the coma that he was in. So the role of omega-3 fatty acids in the treatment of depressive disorders, a comprehensive meta-analysis of randomized clinical trials. So this is, they compared a bunch of different studies. And the use of omega-3 polyunsaturated fatty acids is effective in patients with diagnosis of mild depressive disorder and on depressive patients without diagnosis of mild. So regardless of whether they diagnose it as mild or just depression, it helped them. Dietary supplement for cognitive impairment, again, similarly, polyunsaturated and omega-3 fatty acids, the DHA and EPA supplements are associated with beneficial effect on cognitive function due to the cumulative summation of factors that ultimately favor membrane permeability. This is what I talked to you about earlier with the fats and the membranes around cells, and neuronal functioning, the ability of the nerves to transmit information. It helps with all of that. So this is the probiotic. Why supplement with probiotic bacteria? I already talked to you about this, but you know, we have to understand how we decimated the colonization of probiotic bacteria in our bowel. Reinoculate the bowel and you'll stay healthier. And again, using live sources of probiotics, not something that's capsulized and on a shelf in Walmart in the heat and the cool and the transport was heated and all that kind of stuff. Greens First, we beat that one up pretty much, but it does have probiotics in it as well. If you look at the label on the Greens First, you're going to see it's got wheatgrass, it's got barley grass, it's got all kinds of stuff in it. And no, wheatgrass doesn't contain omega-6. Grasses contain omega-3s, and that's why grass-fed beef will have a higher concentration of omega-3s than corn-fed or grain-fed beef, which will have a higher concentration of omega-6s. So it's a whole food supplement, contains probiotics. Okay, other foods that you can incorporate into your diet as we transition through the cleanse. So again, we do have a yogurt recipe. I think it was in your packet or the email that you guys got with information in it that are online. And in that, we will use some yogurt. Now, I don't want you to do this now, okay? I want you to wait if you still want to lose a lot of weight, et cetera, et cetera. But when we transition out of the cleanse, these are some of the things that we're going to be talking about. So you're going to use plain yogurt. You're going to use nut granola, not granola, because it's really high carbohydrate, but nut-based granola will be low carbohydrate. Okay. And then you put some of your fruits like what you've used in your shake into that. Let's see, bread, again, I don't eat bread. I mean, like if I have a salad, I tell them that no croutons even, I don't eat bread. And the reason is because of what they put in it now. They put bromine in it. Bromine is a competitive binder to iodine receptors in your body. And so is chlorine for that matter. So, if you consume or use chlorine-based products and get it on your hands, it'll go through your skin into your body and it'll be incorporated into iodine receptors. So, you want to try and avoid that because iodine is something that many people are deficient in. The reason they iodized salt back in the 1920s was because people were developing goiters. Why? Because they didn't get iodine in their diet. So they figured put it in salt, everybody uses salt, that'll work. And it did. Coffee. So we had this question before. When you go back to it, if you choose, and somebody said that in their notes to me, I missed that hot coffee in the morning. If you go back to coffee, which I'm not saying you should, because I never did, and I drank a lot years ago. And then, when I worked at a company years ago, that was, you hang out, talk, you have coffee. I'm going to recommend you use organic, water decaffeinated, or Swiss decaffeinated. It's the same thing, they just call it something different. Coffee. You can get it right in Weiss. I think Paul Newman's Own or whatever makes it. It's not much more expensive than regular coffee. It's clean because it's water decaffeinated. The decaffeination process that's used for regular coffee uses substances to decaffeinate the coffee, like formaldehyde. Okay, but this uses water, and it's so you can get back to your coffee afterwards if you choose to by using something like that or that specific. Yes.
So what about?
Yeah. So the question was back to bread. What about English muffins? Is that the same thing? So if you look at, here's what we're going to talk about next week too, Terry, is labels. So if you look at the label, what you're going to be looking at, this is a primer for next week, is sugars and carbohydrates. Those are the first things I want you to put your eyeballs on. And then after that, you want to look at the ingredients. So they use wheat as a primary product. Okay, it's an inflammatory grain. They use corn. It's an inflammatory grain. So you guys know this now. All you have to do is look at it and say, okay, it's got a lot of wheat in it. It's going to inflame me. So I'm not saying you can never eat it. What I'm saying is I don't want you to eat, okay, I'm going to have my English muffin in the morning and I'm going to put peanut butter on it. And then at lunchtime, I'm going to make a sandwich or have a club sandwich and have 2 or 3 more slices of bread, right? And then at dinner, I'm going to have my spaghetti and have some bread with that. I mean, look at how much you just totally defunct everything you just did, right? So this is why I want you to understand, you don't want to just go back to them. Okay, you want to have oatmeal one day, 2 days in the winter. Okay, that's a grain, but it's not like wheat, right? You don't want to have it every day. And the whole fallacy about the cholesterol, you guys watch, look at your blood work that you have done after the cleanse. It's going to be much better than what you had done before, I guarantee it. Okay, so does that help? Okay. Yogurt recipe, this is it. One thing that I don't have on there that you can do is, you can use the raw wheat germ. with grains like that, wheat germ is an example. If it's not toasted, which they do, like the Kretschmer's wheat germ is toasted, you just kind of defeat the process by doing that. So you want to use real wheat germ, okay? And you want to use a refrigerated source because it'll become rancid because there's oil in the wheat germ. So it has to be fresh and it has to be refrigerated. Way to keep it good. So that's your recipe. It's in your notes.
All that stuff you can get at once.
Yeah, pretty much everything you get at your local supermarket. You know, I put Stonyfield Farms organic plain yogurt, okay? And it doesn't have to be the low fat necessarily, unless you really want that, but it doesn't have to be. The organic fruit is similar to what you're using now. The raw wheat germ, you can get that at Weiss. If you can't get it there, you can get it at Kimmerton Whole Foods or wherever. The pecan granola, now you will pay more for a nut granola. It's stupid, but you do. And it's got a much lower, you know, carbohydrate content. The organic flaxseed, so flaxseed, if you want to use flaxseed itself, not the oil, I'm talking about the seeds, you have to break them up. You have to put them into like a food processor or a little coffee grinder thing that they have, you know, you put coffee beans in, because you have to break them open. Otherwise, the hull you will not digest. It'll go right through you like cheese. And so, you know, if you're going to use that, grind it up, put it in a glass covered container, burp it, get the air out as much as you can and put it in a refrigerator. Use it for 3 or 4 days and then grind some more. And then the green tea we've talked about. Beat that one up pretty much. So what's up for our next class? Okay, so stress is going to be gone over in our next class. Okay, and our next class is going to be pretty long, guys, because I'm going to go over that. I'm going to go over foods. I'm going to have a bunch of foods here that I'll talk to you about. I'm going to go over labels. And so we're going to talk about a bunch of that stuff. You're going to do a toxicity questionnaire again for us. The group picture is kind of tough because we got a lot of the group here and we got some of the group here. So we'll probably do a group picture of who's here. Sorry, guys that aren't here. And we'll talk, and this is one of my favorite topics, is the stress, because everyone experiences this. And I want you to understand how it manifests physiologically in your body. So this is going to be an important one for you guys. And I'm going to show you how specific changes that occur in your body directly caused by stress cause the prescription of multiple different drugs. And I'll show you the drugs that are prescribed for each one of the stressors or each one of the effects of the stressors as we go along. And we're going to do the complementary nutrition response testing for anyone who wants to take advantage of that as well. Okay. Yep. And that's our goal. So after these 3 weeks, my goal is to see that we can help you to transition back to the real world and be able to do some of the things that you want to do, okay? But maybe not the way you did them or to the degree you did them previously, okay? So that's really my objective as we transition through next week. Here's the statement again that I think is really important for you guys to take. Change humanity, right? By teaching and demonstrating the things that you can do to create a genetically congruent lifestyle. I can't overemphasize the importance of that. The way your body genetically is designed to work is what we're doing. You're designed to move, you're designed to eat food, not product. Those are 2 of the biggies right there, which will, without a doubt, divert your life path from a disease and sickness paradigm, which we see every day in this society, this culture, to a health and wellness paradigm. And that's the key. That's the critical component. Never give up, dig deep, and keep going. and teach others what you've learned. Okay, because that's really, really important. You guys that are online, you know, it's nice to have the interaction here. I can see facial expressions. I can see, you know, intonations and or hear intonations and voice. But it's always more challenging when we're doing it online because the virtual aspect of it loses a little bit of that. But I still feel that we've been able to communicate relatively well. And I hope, Kathy, that repeating the questions worked out better tonight than it did. Got a thumbs up on that. You know, and that's the difficulty too, because you don't quite get to share and participate in all of it. But we try to make it as you know, comprehensive for everyone as we possibly can. So you guys have a great night. If you have questions, if anything comes up, email us, call us, just like you've been doing. And Curry has gotten every single one of those emails to me. She is just an amazing person. I mean, weekends, she's texting me stuff and sending me emails. And, you know, that's how we've gotten back to some of you as rapidly as we've been able to. But you guys just keep up the good work. You've done amazing things. I mean, I will have our total class weight loss at the end, and you guys are going to be amazed at what's happened to change your lives. Curry has this up. Oh, nutrition response testing. So she put this up here for me today. I guess she wanted me to do this today. So some of you guys are patients up here. Those of you who are not, and you guys online, you can just email us if you'd like to take advantage of that in some way. But, you know, important segue too. We do treat a lot of patients in the center who don't live here. I have patients who live in California. I have patients who live in Florida. I have patients who live in like Bradford County that I treat here, but I don't treat them. I treat them like I do you guys online. So we do it through the blood work, et cetera. And we're able to change lives by doing that. So those of you that are here and those of you who are not here, if you choose to have some testing done, feel free to let Curry know. But I'm going to pass this around. Amy, you will grab that. Thank you, because you're already a patient here. So yeah, you do need a pen though. You do have pens. Thank you, Amy.
So we can also get the blood work done if we're away?
Yep.
Oh,
Now,
we can?
Let me talk to you about that though, because that's an important point. So when I do blood work up here, I will tell you right now that your insurance companies or your Medicare or whatever you have is not going to pay for the blood work that all the tests, I should say, that I want to have done. They won't do it. An example is vitamin D. Many insurance companies won't pay for it, or if you have it done once a year, that's it. Okay. The tests I went over with you about your thyroid gland, they won't run all those. They'll run some, but they're not going to run them all. So what ends up happening with people, Kath, is that, you know, and I've done this before. So here's an example. I did a vitamin D test on a patient. She had extremely low vitamin D. So we started supplementing, right? 3 months later, 4 months later, I reran the test because I wanted to see where she was. I had to see, you know, because we have a high dose of vitamin D. I don't want it to go too high. I want it to be right in a certain range. So we ran a test and she got billed for it. And so I called the insurance company and I said, what are you billing her for? I said, she had hypovitaminosis D. She had low vitamin D. I supplemented her. I'm checking to see if it's where it should be. Well, we only pay for it once a year. I said, well, you know, that's stupid. I said, how am I supposed to modulate what I'm doing if you don't let me do it? Right, you can't. You cannot moderate what you're doing. So this is a stupidity. And you'll see it more and more today, not just with this. You'll see it with surgeries. You'll see it with, well, I have a patient right now. She wanted to have surgery. She had a problem with blood clots in her legs. And she was supposed to have surgery. Well, the insurance company didn't approve it. So now this is 6 months later. She has to have all the tests done again. Well, they paid for that. It's worse because they didn't approve it. Yeah, I mean, I had a patient one time who fell, and I wanted to see if she fractured her spine. And they would not approve an X-ray for this woman. It didn't have all the criteria they needed. I said, well, listen, she could have fractured her spine. I need to know that, because what do? I adjust their spine. So I should wait and see. I finally coerced them into, no, I don't remember how I did, but somehow we got an X-ray done. And in fact, she did fracture her spine, and they were not going to pay for it. So my point is this: we have a co-op company we use.
Exactly so.
It again? Was that you, Steph? That was somebody. All right. Who it was? It was Beth.
No, it wasn't me.
Beth, okay. Somebody said something. Maybe they sneezed. We have a co-op that we use. So here's an example. If you get your vitamin D level tested, they charge like 150, 200 bucks. It depends on the lab, right? So if your insurance company doesn't pay for it, guess what? You get a bill for it. Like this lady, she got a bill for 150 bucks or something. The lab we use, I can get that test done. I don't know, Curry knows better than I can get it done for maybe half that price. If I run everything, see, the more you run, the lower the price goes with a co-op. So if I run every test, I can do a CBC, I can do a comprehensive metabolic panel. It includes your full iron panel, everything, ferritin. I can run your full thyroid panel. I can run a urinalysis all together. It's like 280 bucks to do everything, but it doesn't go through your insurance because they won't pay for some of it. So that's how we kind of get around the system. Okay. And it's much, I mean, if I ran all those tests and they didn't pay for any of them, it would be literally thousands of dollars they would charge you, right, Linda? Well, Linda works for a hospital, she knows. It would be thousands of dollars, but I can get it done for 280 bucks, and no problem. You get it done at LabCorp, you get it done in a regular lab. It's not like I'm drawing blood into the laboratory here or something, I mean, they do it at LabCorp, they do the analysis at LabCorp, but see, they have such a volume to give to LabCorp that they give them a super duper discount. And so that's how we can do it. And that's how we do it, Kath, with, like, if you're long distance. Okay. So, we can get the whole gamut done, and I can do a functional medicine analysis on every single one of the blood criteria. And then we can come up. I mean, the things that we find before people have them are significant, because, I had a professor in school years ago, and he said, conditions early are very difficult to diagnose, but very easy to treat. Conditions late are easy to diagnose. They're very difficult to treat. And it's very true. So if we can identify things early and correct them and, support them, then you don't develop the crazy stuff later. So that's how that all works, Kath, with you guys who are away from us. Okay. So like the gal in California that I was treating, she had a thyroid problem. Well, I just gave her the script. She got all the testing done. We could modulate what was wrong long distance by having her use the supplementation that we sent to her. And it was all perfect. We got it all to where it should be. Okay. So, it doesn't have to be like one-on-one, me looking at you. We're doing it kind of like we are here, except, my face would be on the screen over there where the doggy is, and you would be, in the sidebar. Okay. So that's all I got for you guys tonight, unless you have other questions. If you want anything from Curry, just check it off on your little list, get your discount on it. If there's something you want to try that you haven't, or, like I said, the Catalan or Gymnema or whatever, just get it now if you're going to get it, because it'll be more later if you decide, oh, I should do that. Okay. And that's the only reason we do it. All right. Everybody online? Good?
Yes.
Okay.
Bye,
Excellent.
Doug.
Go ahead. You guys said bye.
I said, have a good night.
You do the same. Thanks, Beth. See you,
Bye,
Kat.
Uncle Doug. Bye, Uncle Doug.
See you, Steph. Take care. Bye, everybody else.
Bye.
See you, Kath.
Oh,
Rob-
Mike
Robin,
said
you're
have a
doing
good
great
night
job,
too.
By the way.
Mikey
just
said
yelled at
have a
him.
good night too.
Thanks, you guys do the same. All
Bye.
right. See ya. All right, we're going bye-bye. All right, everybody. Go home safely, please. All of you guys. That was crazy.